Slept On Cinema is sponsored by Training Ties, the ultimate shoe tying tool. If you know someone who's struggling with shoe tying for any reason, Training Ties is the perfect solution.
In terms of suspense, this net is full of holes.
Sandra Bullock is lucky to have a career after this.
Nothing more than great eye candy for Sandra Bullock fans.
Unfortunately, in movie theaters, as of now, there are no delete buttons.
Stay away from this, unless, of course, you're an AOL user with a 28K modem, in which case you'll be right up to speed for this film.
The movie, it turns out, isn't about the internet at all. That's no crime, but it's a sad waste of a good title.
Welcome to Slept On Cinema. I am Stan Steamer. I'm here with my co-host Grove Street, and we are going to showcase some of the greatest films that have been slept on by both critics and audiences. The criteria for movies we're going to talk about on this podcast are only movies that are below 50% for both the critic score and the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Our first film here is one of the greatest movies of the last 40 years. I have no idea how it meets this criteria, but of course we are talking about The Net, which clocks in at 40 on the critic score and 44 on the audience score. Grobe, you want to start us off with the rotten premise?
Rotten premise. Computer programmer Angela Bennett starts a new freelance gig, and strangely, all of her colleagues start dying. Does it have something to do with the mysterious disc she was given? During a trip to Mexico, she's seduced by a handsome stranger intent on locating the same disc. Soon, Angela is tangled up in a far-reaching conspiracy that leads her identity being erased. Can she stop the same thing from happening to her life?
I mean, that sounds amazing.
I can't wait to watch this.
I've seen this movie probably 100 times, and I want to watch it again right now.
I was so excited getting to rewatch this. I mean, this is why we started the show, whatever, but I really can't believe that it's sub 50% on both. Like, how does the audience not have over 50% enjoyment of this movie?
It doesn't make any sense because it is a thoroughly enjoyable movie. It was, I think, ahead of its time. Maybe that kind of hurt it, but I think it holds up really well. It is, I think, important to understand sort of what was going on when this movie came out to understand really where it fits in the world. So I think looking back, this movie came out in 1995. In 1995, there are only about 23,000 websites in the entire world. Right now, there's over 1 billion websites. You're signing on to the internet. You're probably using AOL. AOL at that point costs $9.95 a month, and you're getting 5 hours of internet for the month.
Yep, a dial-up modem.
Yeah, your dial-up modem. The New York Times doesn't have a website yet. That's not a thing. There's basically no internet. All internet is these chat rooms. I mean, the things that you see in this movie are way ahead of its time. LifeLock, it wouldn't exist for another 10 years. Amazon had just launched. At that point, they're a small bookstore. People are playing Super Nintendo. That's where you're getting your game. Super Nintendo. Sega Saturn just came out. People probably played that for about 2 months.
Yep, that was a mistake.
Bill Gates, still the richest man in the world at that point. I think, I don't know, he's still probably up there. So he's also held up pretty well.
So he holds up over time.
The movie probably hit into a little bit of a rough streak with where it came out too. This opened up the same exact day as Waterworld. So I think there was quite a bit of expectations built up with Waterworld. It itself was a flop, but I think coming out against Waterworld, that probably hurt its box office.
And you said the same day?
Same day. Yeah. The same day as Waterworld.
So everyone's going to see Waterworld to then complain about how bad it was.
Probably already in a mindset of like everything that's hyped is bad.
So it definitely got lost in the shuffle there.
It really felt like it should have been primed for a huge run. I think Sandra Bullock had just come off of Speed.
This was her first big one after Speed, right?
Yeah. Speed was, one of the greatest action movies of the 90s, maybe of all time. She's a bona fide movie star. She carries this film.
This movie would be horrible without her.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I mentioned it before. I really think she could have been nominated for Best Actress for this movie.
This is an example of like a Russell Westbrook type performance where you can carry a shit team.
Oh, yeah.
Playoffs. I mean, you're not going to win the whole thing and no one's going to remember you, but you weren't awful. And this could have been an awful, awful movie if she wasn't in it to save the movie.
She's amazing.
Yeah, she's great.
She's absolutely amazing in this movie. Absolutely amazing. She's funny. She's smart. She looks good in a bathing suit. She kills. She carries the whole thing. She sees all the angles.
And she's smart enough to know how dangerous this could be because she's in the world of computers. So she knows the potential of this program and what it could do to the country and the world.
Yeah, and it's a very, very prescient film. I think maybe that was also something that it struggled with a little bit. Probably when this came out, the concept of identity theft and the internet being all consuming was probably still pretty foreign at that point. I mean, people hardly went on the internet. If you're spending a lot of time on the internet, you're a huge weirdo.
They even kind of joke about that. People who use the internet were cast-offs of society. They were looked at as like losers in basements if you just had the internet.
This movie should have been a blockbuster. This movie should have been...
I think she just needed some help in the movie. Like, if she got some help from the other actors and maybe some of the writing, it could have been the hit it should have been.
It could have been. It was another sort of interesting point. I mean, I think anybody who watches this sees Jeremy Northam as one of the villains here. You can't help but think of Pierce Brosnan in peak 1995 Pierce Brosnan. GoldenEye comes out a few months after The Net comes out. You swap him. I mean, I don't think Jeremy Northam could be Bond, but you put Pierce Brosnan, you put James Bond into this movie.
It's an all-timer. It's Thomas Crown Affair level.
What if? But I think even without that, Sandy just carries the film.
Yeah,
highly watchable movie.
All right, you want to explain Bolo since I just learned it last week?
Bolo. So we got our list of fun, deranged, any sort of items, things to be on the lookout while watching this film. Something to keep your eyes glued to the TV if Sandy's not doing enough for you. I will kick it off. I will go watch out for one unnecessarily sliced hand.
Yeah, that's a good one. Times the evil villain just is an idiot and messes up.
Yep, I can think of a few of those right off the bat. I will go with ordering a pizza online. Watch out for that. I feel like if anything has held up in pop culture from this movie, it for some reason has been ordering a pizza online.
They dedicated minutes to it. And it was, and looking back on it, it's so easy. We've all ordered pizza from our phone at this point. Even still, that ordering sequence of her ordering the pizzas, it holds up.
It holds up. If you go on, I don't know, Domino's.com or whatever right now, I don't even know if it looks that good. The other thing that has held up, which I was shocked at, I don't know if you saw the price of a large pizza with 2 toppings, $14 in 1995. Yeah. That's not all that far off from where we are today.
Nope. Some places are even less. Inflation hasn't touched pizzas, I guess. We'll look for the importance of the mainframe. The mainframe was a big buzzword in the 90s where you always had to get to the mainframe.
The computer lingo in this film. They really push some things in your face, but other things like the computer lingo, they hope you're up to speed. They just fire it right at you.
Yep.
Mainframe? Who knows what a mainframe is in 1995?
No, but I wish Google was there for me to figure out what it actually was. Instead, I was just left being afraid.
Other thing, and this kind of goes along with the villains being idiots, but just the number of crashes that we see. Boat crash, plane crash, car crash.
There's a lot of crashes and slow-mo crash sequences sort of out of nowhere as well.
Mm-hmm.
Angela getting touched without consent happens a lot during the movie. Different times in the 90s, apparently, where you could just grope women.
It seems like every single character, even the most minor characters, cannot stop hitting on her, making strange comments. Pretty pervasive, especially for a person who seems to be afraid of human contact generally.
She handles it well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, her personal growth in this movie is astounding.
Yeah. By the end, she's had enough of that.
I will go with 3 very well-timed local news stories. Some might say it's a trope and it moves the plot along, but I think that it's a really effective way that they move the plot along and give you some background information in this film. And you will notice, I think that one of the main news anchors in this also shows up in The Game a few years later. Same newscaster. Yeah,
I saw that as well. Right when it came on the screen, I was like, oh shit, that's that guy from The Game. And then I looked it up and it was, the guy from The Game.
Oh yeah. Strong gravitas that guy has. I mean, I feel like I would, if he was on the news now, I would watch a lot more news.
Yeah, I definitely would. I would at least watch the news. I think some might have been taken, but I guess the last one would be when the movie tries to be cutting edge, but it's also now the reason why it's super dated. So there's a few like internet lingos like IRL, which they have to explicitly explain what that means but they were saying it to be edgy, and now it's just like, ugh. It doesn't hold up very well.
I wonder how many people knew what IRL meant back then. Like,
I don't think many. They made a point to explain it.
Do you think you learned what IRL meant by this movie?
Yes.
I think I probably did.
Yeah, I learned from Angela Bennett what IRL meant.
And do you think you then started using it immediately afterwards?
No, because you didn't. It's tough to. Then I would have to explain it to everyone else.
That's true.
And then
that's true. I was I don't know what, I was like 10, 11 years old. I probably wasn't doing that much like IRL meetups based off of chat rooms at that point in my life. That came later.
Most of life back then was IRL.
Yeah, almost all of it. I made 99%, except for your 5 hours a month on the internet.
Yeah, whatever CDs you got in the mail.
I got to throw one last one in because it's a great thing to watch for. One, Drawbridge Escape. I mean, any movie where a drawbridge is going up and someone escapes is just fantastic in my mind.
Well, it also allows for that moment where the one chasing and the one being chased get to look at each other.
It's a great way to end a chase without someone having to get caught.
Right. It's a very calm way to end a long chase sequence. All right. So is this everyone has a chance now to go watch the movie? We'll come back.
Yeah, go watch the film. Come back.
Sorry, film, not a movie.
Well, what's the difference in film and movie?
I think film, it's making it seem like it's more important.
Huh.
Yeah. I don't know if there is a film. Maybe you're just trying to be like pretentious when you say film as opposed to movie.
Is it like there are films, you go to film school, but there's no such thing as movie school?
Right. Like, I don't know. I feel like people would call Schindler's List a film and they wouldn't call Pootie Tang a film. They would call that a movie.
Movie, when you think about it, sounds really dumb. Like it's a movie, like people are moving in it. Is that what it is?
Like it doesn't sound great. But so, which is what this is a film. Yep.
It's an exciting film.
So, yep, this is your chance now to go watch it. We'll talk about it after you come back.
Computer analyst Angela Bennett just stumbled onto something she never should have seen.
My God.
It's time to go.
The net is an edge-of-your-seat nail-biter.
The whole lives are on the computer and they knew.
That explodes with suspense.
Just give us the disc and we'll give you your life back.
Sandra Bullock is sensational.
Think of the power that they have.
In the best thriller of the summer.
I don't understand. Why me?
Sandra Bullock.
They've done it to me. They're going to do it to you.
In the net.
Welcome back. That was awesome.
Great time. It is a great watch. Watching it and taking notes was even better. Appreciate all the small little things that maybe you wouldn't have typically noticed in our prior 100 times watching the movie.
I mean, this movie was fantastic. I feel like it was an obvious choice for our first episode. It hits the sub 50 for both.
Maybe people are lying and saying they didn't enjoy this movie because
it did well. There's a sequel. There's a TV series.
Yep.
This made a lot of people a lot of money.
The star of this went on to make other great movies, Sandra Bullock.
Great film, great flick, great movie, whatever you want to call it.
So the segment we do to start after watching the movie is we have a draft. So we're going to draft our favorite things. It could be anything, but draft our favorite things about this movie. Matt, I think we'll let you go first.
I'm sure I'm stealing this right off your draft board. This seems so obvious. You can't go with anything else. Sandra Bullock. I mean, without Sandra Bullock in this movie, you have nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I don't know who else could do what she did in 95. Like maybe Julia Roberts, maybe.
There was some review that we didn't get to where some reviewer said that Sandra Bullock was playing a watered down Julia Roberts or something like that.
Not watered down at all.
I mean, I think she absolutely crushed this. This seems like maybe it wasn't that far off from her. Like this, I think, was a pretty real role for her. Apparently, she was just a workaholic, and she just was grinding. When they were filming this, she was also working on While You Were Sleeping. So she was doing 2 movies at once.
Wow. I'm not surprised. I read a review that said, like, this was one of the last movies before she just started giggle, snorting, and spilling stuff on herself, which I thought was very unfair.
I mean, if that's what she wants to do after just crushing it, you got Speed, you got The Net. That's a career right there. Forget about everything. Easy first overall.
I mean, she's obviously why this movie is even on our podcast. She makes the movie for sure. The second pick in our first draft, I'm going to go with the score of the movie. Used to have movies made like to like a piano, and like you'd score the movie as if it was an opera or something. And
sort of like choir elements to it
yeah.
as well, which I'm sure is very intentional. I'm maybe not smart enough to connect all the dots here, but I feel like that sort of choir music element, the fact that she works at Cathedral Software, her name is Angela, and then online it's Angel. There's some sort of Christian thing here that I think fits in with the music, and I don't know what it is, but I'm sure that it was intentional, and I'm sure that it's very important.
I'm sure it is, and it probably went right over our heads. Yeah, I think the only song in this was the theme of the movie, which is Annie Lennox's Whiter Shade of Pale. I can't hear that song without wanting to. I don't hear that song ever, but if I was to hear it, I couldn't imagine not wanting to watch the net afterwards. You instantly think of the net.
Yeah, I instantly just start ordering anchovy and garlic pizza online.
One of us. I will go with, I feel like the internet. In this movie, there was such a misunderstanding or lack of knowledge of how far the reach of the internet could go, that it could just affect a plane that was flying in the sky for some reason. It can affect the prescription of Alan. It can affect anything, and no one can question it because no one knows enough about the internet back then. The internet and its mystique would be a great third pick.
Obvious early round pick. I mean, I think it was interesting. I was reading about some of the background of how the film got made, and these writers had to go into some of these pitch meetings in Hollywood, and they start pitching this movie, and they apparently the bigwigs said shut them down and say, hold on, what is the internet? And they had to first, before getting into anything about this movie, had first to explain what the internet was. You're talking about people don't know how far reaching this is. People didn't even know what it was.
It was, right. Which, if you don't know what it was, you don't know its limitations, which apparently there were none in 1995.
Absolutely.
I don't think the plane would have internet connection, yet nothing worked in that plane for Gil.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I don't know. He was using GPS. There's got to be internet involved with GPS, right? Is it satellites? There's got to be some sort of.
I just feel like the instrument should be able to tell him he was 10 feet above the ground.
You're about to fly into a power plant.
Yeah,
but that's the power of the internet. I mean, you become so reliant on it, you forget that you have a window.
Yep, that's very true.
All right, my second pick, and again, I think this it really impacted my life in many ways. Got to go with Gibsons.
Yeah.
If you didn't know what a Gibson was before you watched this movie, you're damn sure you know what it is afterwards. I think that they hammer home the ingredients of a Gibson quite a bit.
I wasn't sure what she was pulling out of the freezer in the beginning. I didn't know if it was an olive or an onion. She was just making like a quick martini. And then Alan came to show exactly what she was drinking and mentioned Gibson a bunch.
Almost every character in the movie drinks a Gibson at some point in the movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, she's around Jack a lot. Both the dudes she's with drink Gibsons. And
have you had a Gibson?
I have had a Gibson.
I've had several Gibsons only because they make me think of this movie. And I want to think about this movie, so I'll order a Gibson. Yeah,
it's something that makes me giggle when I order it, and then my wife doesn't care and thinks I'm an idiot for ordering it.
I also like to think that every time I order it, it's this kind of inside joke between me and the bartender that we're both talking about the net without saying it.
Right. Unfortunately, the bartender's probably like 24 and has never seen the net until maybe they listen to this.
Right. The last pick before we get to our sleeper round, I am going to go with, and this is maybe it's a movie trope, I don't know, but I love when this happens in movies, and I don't know how to describe this succinctly, but it's when there's a double agent or there's some secret and some person knows a fact they shouldn't know. So when the FBI agent knows the disc was destroyed, Angela's in the car. It's like, how did you know? How did you know the disc was destroyed? That's just one of my favorite elements in the movie.
It's when you say something you shouldn't that gives away that you know way too much than you let on.
Yep, exactly.
I haven't told anyone that.
And it's sort of a nod to people like us who are paying attention to the movie, because the guy says like, oh, what happened to the disc? After it was destroyed in Mexico, and you're keeping score with the movie. This guy shouldn't know that disc was destroyed. Any movie that has that in it, I think that's a great film element.
Yeah, I like how her reaction was just being done with everything too. She wasn't like initially annoyed or like even scared. She was just like, ugh, you two.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally understandable, right? I mean, she's just been run ragged. She was thrown in jail. Her lawyer won't even believe her. I mean, she does sound a bit like a crazy person when she's explaining to her lawyer what's going on. I've thought to myself, how would I try to explain this to my lawyer or somebody else so that I wouldn't sound like a crazy person? I don't know if you could. I think it's a lot easier to explain this to somebody now than it was in 1995. You know, you're thrown in jail for this now. Your lawyer's like, yeah, like this happened to me last week. You know, I think this is a very different situation. But for her then, I totally get, wow, this is it. I'm just going to drive this car into a ravine.
Yeah, I mean, it really helps that you know people too. Angela didn't know anyone, which really hurt her trying to explain her case to the cops when she literally knows no one ever, except for maybe her therapist.
Yes. Also, never good when you're trying to convince people you're not crazy to bring up your therapist.
Yep,
that's
not a good thing.
Number one rule, I think, in convincing people you're not crazy. Leave the therapist out of it.
That's a good point. I guess I will go with ordering a pizza. As easy as it is to order a pizza now, I'd almost rather do it on pizza.net. It looked such a great event. She was so happy. I'll do this, this, and this.
I'd like to see what my pizza is going to look like before I commit to ordering it. That makes a lot of sense. And they even go so far as to have her ordering her extra cheese, anchovy, and garlic pizza. Like, this is a pizza only a person who is never going to interact with another person is going to order.
Yeah, you can't interact with a person for another week after ordering that pizza.
That's on the screen for a half second, but those little details are what make this just absolutely fantastic.
And attention to detail is what makes this movie so good.
Absolutely.
So this is our sleeper pick.
Sleeper picks.
I'm going to say, where are you in The Office? Like The Matrix did it well, where you're like hiding from people in the same office. When she confronts herself in the... Angela in the office, and they're on the phone, and she plots to get the fire alarm turned on and then not be seen, and they're both poking their heads up over the cubicles. I'm always going to watch that scene.
It's this weird cat and mouse where who's chasing whom, you can't really tell. They're both in the same cubicle. You're so close yet so far away. I love that scene, but I did think it was a little funny that the lights went out when the fire alarm went off. I don't know that.
Yeah, I feel like that's the one thing that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, it seems like maybe that's a safety hazard.
Yeah, and they both can't draw attention to themselves because neither one of them wants to get caught. Even the fake Angela Bennett can't be like, hey, there's a lady in the office who thinks she's me. They both have to play it cool.
There were two things from that scene that I thought were interesting. One, it's a computer company, software company. There's only one person in the entire shot that is actually using their computer. Everyone else, it's got screensavers up. It's people talking on the phone. One person the entire time actually using a computer. Other element of that scene that really made me think was this fake Angela just goes right into this job, and she's already got coworker friends. She's clearly has not skipped a beat.
I think Angela was ahead of the curve. I mean, we've all had the pandemic now for a year and a half, so everyone was working from home. Angela pulled this shit in 1995. They wanted to come into the office. She's like, nah.
Yeah.
I want to be at home and order some pizzas and talk to Cyberbob. I'm not coming into the office. And she was so good at what she did where they allowed her to, and they had never seen her before. The perfect opportunity back then to do that because no one else was working virtually from home.
Yep.
You could show up and be like, yeah, I'm Angela Bennett. Like, oh, finally. No one would ever think to do that.
Yeah. My sleeper pick, and this is maybe this is just a deep sleeper, but I'm going with Angela's neighbor. You get one sort of side eye from her right at the beginning before Angela goes to vacation. She's throwing out her recyclables or whatever. But then she comes back with the real estate agent. She's in there for like 90 seconds, but she has like half the lines in those scenes. I mean, her lines, she just sort of like buzzes across the screen, fires off some lines. She goes, moving van, moving men, furniture. And then she goes, when Angela's talking about getting her temporary license, the neighbor comes across. Did they do that? I don't think they do that. And then her last one, when Angela's talking about it, she's like, well, I got this visa, but it's not me. I signed my name. It's a federal offense to forge a visa.
Yeah. She got really upset at that federal offense. Very up to date on the federal offenses.
Yeah. I thought that woman just absolutely nailed it. The annoying, nosy neighbor, she crushed it.
She did. She was really annoying. I'm going to sneak one more little thing in. Merry-go-round silencer photo booth scenes. Very brazen there to hide in a photo booth with a silencer and try to pick Angela off on a merry-go-round. Killed a stuffed animal, almost killed some innocent people, a child.
High degree of difficulty.
Incredibly high degree of difficulty, and an odd attempt, which we'll talk about a little bit later, of how Jack is just shit at his job.
I think he has a little bit of overconfidence. I think he's too good looking. He's, got that accent. He's probably led a pretty charmed assassin life. And I think he's a little overconfident. I think that comes up in some of these scenes.
That's true. But he's also kind of on the edge. When he had her on the boat, that disc he tried so hard and finally got, he just tossed in a drawer with his keys, like it was no big deal for her to find it. He leaves his gun in his sport coat after they have sex right next to her bed.
To be fair, he's about to close the deal with Angela. Can you blame him? He's a little distracted.
I mean, he is the only one that actually got to be with Angela, so I'm sure he's a little bit excited. Everyone was trying to do that. But, I mean, he's an international hitman, and he's just he just makes mistake after mistake.
I think Sandy, Angela, the character, I think gets in his head. I think that she's just that.
Oh.
I think she's got so much going on that I think it unravels him.
You think he typically is as cool as he's trying to pretend to be, but something about Angie, or is just an idiot who happens to be attractive with a good accent and somehow ends up in this lifestyle here.
That scene also, it did make me think there are a couple of strange references in this movie that must be intentional because they both throw back to Hitchcock films. When directors put film references in their movies, especially to famous ones, it rarely is it done without intention. And the carousel shot goes back to Strangers in a Train, classic Hitchcock film. There's a memorable scene there with the carousel. Clearly throws back to that. I don't know why, but it clearly does. And second, when they're walking on the beach in Mexico, Jack takes out his handkerchief, ties it around Angela's waist. Weird move, because I'm sort of like, did you blow your nose in this handkerchief? I don't know. I assume he didn't, because that'd be weird. But also throwback to another Hitchcock film, Notorious. Cary Grant takes out his handkerchief, ties it around Ingrid Bergman's waist when she's cold. That is such an odd move that it must have been an intentional reference. I don't know if they're trying to just weave in this suspense element by tying back to these classic Hitchcock moves or what. I'm sure smarter people than us could probably tell you all about it.
Which then leads into a scene used on Curb Your Enthusiasm with the classic, oh no, that guy took your purse, let me go get him so I can be the good guy move. I'm not sure how many times that was used prior to the net, but I feel like it was kind of groundbreaking because it's been used a lot of times since then. I mean, it's a great way to gain favor with someone is you hire some local, steal their purse, run off, you go get it or get hurt.
One thing I don't understand, this happens in all sorts of movies all the time when people need to fake some sort of injury or fake some sort of wound and they need to get blood for a blood oath or whatever it is. People always go for the hand. I don't know, go for the thigh, your lower leg, your elbow. I mean, there's no reason he needed to slice his hand. He's a hitman. He uses his hand.
I don't know why the hand may be showing that he was trying to grab at the purse or the guy and he got sliced. I don't know what logic, but it definitely lowers your ability level going forward as a hitman for a number of weeks at least.
I mean, logically, yeah, sure. You're trying to grab the knife. I don't know.
What do you think would be a change that would make this into a blockbuster movie? Why wasn't this a huge success? What one change would you make to make it one?
It is perplexing, right? This movie, A-list movie star, ahead of its time plot line, and maybe that's part of it. Suspense, action, intrigue. It sort of has everything. So it sort of doesn't totally make sense why this wasn't a blockbuster. But if I'm making one edit, and maybe this is two, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm really cutting back Alan's time, but I replace that time with a little bit more background on the Praetorians and how they got wrapped up with Greg. Because we only really get that bit from these news stories. And I think there's something really interesting going on there. I think it gets into this sort of big tech in bed with cyber criminals. Is he just doing this to get money? What is it? I'd like to see some more from that. And I think you keep the runtime the same. Dr. Allen dies off when he first takes those penicillin pills. We don't need to have the hospital scene.
Yeah, the computers, they changed his prescription.
Yeah, they changed that. We don't need his death to be changed twice with computers. He could just die right out. I don't think anyone's going to miss him. But give me some more of the Praetorians. I mean, the Praetorians, that's an awesome name.
Yeah, we could have known about the main villain who started all this, who implemented the gatekeeper system. It would have been nice to know a little bit more about him and his other wrongdoings.
You only see him on the news. I think you put that in, you get rid of a little bit of Dennis Miller, and I think this probably becomes the biggest movie of 1995.
Yeah, I would recast Jack. I thought he was a buffoon.
Do you have anyone in mind?
Well, we've talked about it already, but Pierce Brosnan, if we could get him, she would get the help that she needed.
Obviously tough to pry him away from James Bond, but throw some of that internet money at him. Make it happen.
I mean, he had the whole suave thing down, but the rest of it just didn't work. I mean, they maybe could have written him to not be such a buffoon too, but I think he didn't do anything to help the movie.
With Sandy's star power, you need someone that can play up to her level. I've said this for years. People think I'm crazy. This is a Academy Award-winning performance. She wins it The Blind Side, makeup call, the universe.
Yeah, she's given all the support that she could possibly ask for in The Blind Side, and none of it in this movie. She's Russell Westbrook in this. She brought up a shit crew into a playoff spot to a watchable movie, when if she was given a little bit of help, this movie would be an all-timer. All right, I'm very excited to get to this next part. Spin-off ideas.
Great category here. I got a few. The first is sort of a prequel. You call it Rise of the Praetorians. I think there is some sort of fantastic spin-off about the Praetorians, how they got into all these systems, how they got wrapped up with the gatekeeper software. There's a lot of meat on that bone. I think that is a dynamite movie.
I mean, just listening to you say it, I can't imagine not wanting to watch that. I can't believe there isn't a movie already called The Praetorians. Like, I don't even care what that movie's about. I
would watch it tonight. I got a couple other spin-off ideas. I'd like the Ruth Marks prequel. I think she's a pretty interesting character. She's far more capable, I think, than Devlin, despite that Devlin has the best of her by accident when he shoots his own partner.
Once again, him being an idiot.
Yep, but I think she is way more competent. I think you could have a pretty interesting backstory to her.
Yeah, I feel like if she was left alone to finish the job, she would have done it, and Jack got in her way.
She probably hits that shot from the photo booth, and the movie ends right there.
Oh, for sure.
And then sends everyone a virus at the carnival.
Yeah, that was a pick I should have made with the viruses during the draft in the beginning part. The viruses are very scary. I just hit the escape key and it erases the entire
all time. And I'm surprised this didn't get picked in the draft. The escape key.
I know. I should have picked. I was thinking about that. I should have picked
the escape key. It never has an escape. I don't know if I've ever actually used the escape key and it did anything. I feel like I'm always like,
well, you weren't in the mainframe with a virus when you hit the escape key.
Crucial characters.
Yeah, that really should have been picked. As spin-off ideas, I would like Sandra Bullock or Angie helping Gene Hackman and Will Smith in Enemy of the State 2. We have a little combination of The Net and Enemy of the State, where they get some help from a cyber genius on their side.
I would definitely watch that. I'm kind of surprised that didn't get made. There were probably the budget. Probably no one in the 90s had the budget for that movie, right? And
yeah, it's a very similar premise in both, where like the eye in the sky and the computer world is like spying on you and they're coming to get you.
Sandra Bullock, Will Smith, same movie. 90s Will Smith, 90s Sandra Bullock.
And Gene Hackman, yeah. Wow. That would be incredible.
But my last spinoff, and maybe this is a bit of a wild card here, I'm going with some sort of spinoff. Maybe it's a movie, maybe it's a series, but it follows the real estate agent. He probably has some sort of mob ties. He got this deal done really fast. I think there's something there, and I think maybe he's laundering money through flipping houses for the mob. Maybe it's a series. You have each one following a different house transaction. It's neat. It's tidy.
Maybe it's some sort of anthology series where each house he sells is a whole new series. I would definitely watch that. And my last one is Cyber Bob's life helping online hackers crack codes until he meets his untimely demise from Jack, or does he? So I want to see Cyber Bob is very willing to help and stick his neck out and very willing to help other online people like himself. So I feel like it maybe wasn't his first. He was very intelligent about knowing about the Praetorians too, like to stay away from them. So I feel like he might have experienced some time with them before. So there could be a whole nother series of events, of successful events, where Cyber Bob has helped people get away from the Praetorians and people like them.
I mean, there's all sorts of angles you go with Cyber Bob. Like maybe Cyber Bob's from the future, you know?
And do we know that he's dead? That we were told he was dead.
We definitely don't know he's dead. We just know that he didn't show up to meet Angie at the carnival, and Devlin did. And we know that Devlin paid him a visit, but he could have been drugged. Devlin maybe shot him, but he didn't die. We know Devlin has some aiming issues.
I don't trust that he could have taken out Cyber Bob. I think Cyber Bob is too good to be caught by someone like him.
I think that's probably right. I mean, the Cyber Bob's only real mishap was putting his Cyber Bob avatar next to his real name on his apartment phone number.
Yeah, not a good move. Or was it not even the real Cyber Bob? I mean, Cyber Bob is smart enough where maybe that's his decoy.
Oh, it could have been a decoy.
Yeah,
could have been a decoy. We'll have to wait and tune in to Cyber Bob Runs the World or whatever the spinoff is.
Whatever it is, I would watch it. Do you want to explain how we're going to finish this up?
This will be familiar to anyone who has spent time going through the movie store, looking for movies. You don't know what you're looking for, but there is the movie employee shelf. They got their name up there. These are movies the video store clerk vouches for. I think in some ways inform you as to the identity and character of a particular movie store clerk. So this is the shelf. Does this movie go on your shelf? Do you vouch for this? Do you stand up for it? Do you recommend this film? Hands down, this is going on my shelf. Someone walks in and says, what do I need to rent? This is the first thing. Have you seen The Net? Take that. This is 100% easy call shelf movie.
As someone who's had a shelf and worked at a video store, it is definitely going on my shelf. I would love to tell somebody else to watch this movie and have it represent my personality by being on my shelf at the video store.
There we have it. Episode 1, we get a double shelf movie right off the bat.
Double shelf movie right off the bat. It's very exciting. That's it. That's our end of our first episode.
Yep. I hope everyone enjoyed. We don't know what the next episode will have yet, but we will be figuring out that shortly. And
what we do know is on the next movie, critics won't like it and people won't like it, but you should watch it.